1 week of training camp. It's a pretty small sample size, but you got to work with what you got for some stonks. And it is a Wednesday Stonk Watch on the beat. He is Birm. I am Austin. Welcome back. And it's so fun to be back in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, especially on a Wednesday. Got more interviews coming. We have the linebackers and James Laurinaitis to talk to later on. We'll have snap judgments for that. But right now, we've got to get into those stocks, baby.
Yeah, I like football. And I like when people are playing football.
Is that a stock up on football?
Yeah, I think that as a general society, things are better when there's football. Specifically in Ohio State at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, when we get a chance to take note. We had 3 days of practice last week we got to watch. On Tuesday, we got to check out the guys coming off the field, seeing who's still got that I'm healthy strut going on. Most of them do. Good day. I told you on Tuesday Snap Judgment, my first stock is Tavien St. Clair, so I'm going to stick with that. This is a kid who really, as I said on Tuesday, I just think he gets it. And this is a future play, obviously. But when you're at Ohio State, the expectations for being a quarterback, especially then as a 5-star quarterback prospect, but then being a 5-star quarterback prospect from Ohio, the first Ohio quarterback signee since Joe Burrow in 2015, there is no shortage of expectation on Tavien St. Clair, and the way he handles himself, the way he understands what his role is, the way he understands what he wants to accomplish this year. He said on Tuesday, I'm competing against me.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to be is the best teammate I can be, the best player I can be for this team. Tavien St. Clair is not going to play significant or important football for Ohio State this year, barring something crazy happening. But there are a lot of quarterbacks we've seen through the years who recognize that in the first week of fall training camp and then check out. And I just do not have that being a potential worry for him at all. And I think Ohio State really is in good hands moving forward, no matter what happens with this year's quarterback. Tavien, physically, mentally, emotionally, this is everything you want in a leader of the program. So give me as much Tavien St. Clair stock as I can, which probably shouldn't be that much as a 5-star quarterback.
I bet people bought a lot of it already.
I would imagine, but I would say people should buy more.
I think one of the best things Ryan Day could have ever done for Tavien St. Clair, and it probably was somewhat difficult to hear in March or April, but was saying the quarterback competition is over here with Lincoln Kienholz and Julian Sayin, and Tavien is on a separate track. And it is not a shortcut to the front of the line. It is, you're going to be over here, you're going to develop on your own, you're going to compete against yourself, as you mentioned, Birm, and that's what has to happen. I think that it probably, you don't like hearing that if you come from, a smaller school in Ohio and you're a 5-star and people can see your future, and it's you're used to being the man, you've always started at quarterback. This is uncomfortable for me. I guess they just don't see it for me. I'm going to, as you mentioned, check out. But that hasn't been the case with the workouts. It hasn't been the case with the practices that we've seen. It certainly wasn't the case when he evaluated the work he's doing himself in his Tuesday press conference. So I think that helped. He doesn't have to go out on a Tuesday morning at the Woody and feel like he's got to be perfect. Because if he does it, if he's perfect, I could be the starting quarterback for this team, and I'm going to be ready. I'm going to get right in the mix. Or people, the media is talking about me being in the mix, and it's a 3-man battle.
ESPN's putting my name up there next to Julian
ESPN says that I'm right there competing for it. Or the first 3 days, and there's fans out there looking or treating him differently. I think it allows him to be comfortable making mistakes and know that it's not going to cost him anything.
There's so much pressure on any quarterback at Ohio State. And again, Ohio, 5-star, number 1 player in the country, all local kid 40 minutes away. To take away that pressure this year is a really smart decision by Ryan Day.
Yeah, I think, there's probably some element of frustration with the way that Ryan Day handles training camps and quarterbacks, and people thinking, well, is this battle legitimate? Is it not legitimate? Is it going to go back and forth? How does this relate to Will Howard's year? How does this relate to Dwayne Haskins and Joe Burrow? How does it relate to Kyle McCord, Devin Brown, and on down the list? Everything's going to be different. But this is the clearest example, I think, of Ryan Day taking some of that pressure off of Tavien St. Clair and saying, just go learn.
Yeah.
Use this year to do that. In some respects, he did that with Lincoln Kienholz last year.
A lot of respects he did with Lincoln.
Yeah, but this is the most public-facing example of that. And it's led to some periods where you watch Tavien St. Clair and you think, doesn't look like a freshman. Now, there's also other moments that are clear reminders of that. But he's made a lot of throws that are just dazzling.
Yeah, and this will probably be the last time we talk about Tavien St. Clair until January. So
if everything goes right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that people understand the proper expectation for this season for him, but also to understand that this is not a kid who you're going to sit back in the middle of November and be like, oh, is Tavian mad about this? Is Tavian pissed? Is Tavian going to transfer? Like, he understands where his path is, and he's embracing it. And that, more than anything at this part of the year, I think is a really important first step.
Okay, stock up. An entire position group, Birm.
Oh, are you taking linebackers?
I'm taking the defensive line.
Cool. I'm definitely taking linebackers next.
Okay, it's all yours. I think you already have all the linebacker stock, so I'm not sure how you're going to acquire more. But if we spent too much time, arguable, this was the quote-unquote Achilles heel of Ohio State, lack of depth at defensive tackle, lack of depth. They had to go into the portal and get got 2 defensive ends, one in winter, one in spring, to supplement the depth
and
there.
One from the linebacker room.
Yeah, and then, a lot of moving parts there. I think that they answered questions as well as they could for the first week. Does that mean that it's completely done? No. Do they need Edric Houston to get back out there? Without question, they do. But, I mentioned on Saturday on Snap Judgments, the snaps that we've seen of Eric Mensah look really good. Now, there's another full month to go here before they play against Texas, but I'd not consider that to be an option. I think they're already looking at what they have seen with the defensive end pieces and Kenyatta Jackson playing at a really high level. Bo Atkinson with the strength. I think that they like what's happening right there. CJ Hicks is really coming along and embracing this role, and it feels like Matt Patricia is intent on using it in some capacity. We're going to look and see if that's a week-to-week situation or if CJ Hicks is stopping the run well enough to be out there for 20 to 25 snaps every single week. We'll see how that transpires, but they must feel some level of comfort to have already been experimenting a little bit with Caden Curry playing in the 3 technique role and kicking inside. And I don't think that is purely a reaction to Edric Houston's injury or a slight to Taiwan Malone or a reality check for me talking about Eric Mensah or Jason Moore or anybody else. I think it's
flexibility.
It's flexibility, it's versatility that we've talked about. And, if they were worried about the defensive end rotation, they wouldn't be doing it. And I think you could make a case that, you still have to have another body or 2 on the interior. But I think there's also a world where this team plays some odd fronts and 3 down, and Bo Atkinson and Kenyatta Jackson handle that for you, and then you supplement that with Arvell Reese or CJ Hicks. Like, it's really exciting to see hear some of the conversation, because they didn't show many of those things in the first 3 days. But for not going live in what we saw in those first practices and only 1 day in pads, it's like, maybe they actually were correct in that evaluation and did not need something out of the portal. Now, we're going to see on August 30th that that's true, but I think they've done everything that they possibly could for the first week to ease some of those concerns. So I'm saying that stock is up.
Both those things can be true, right? Maybe they would have found a tackle in the portal
if there was a good one.
If there was one available that wasn't asking $1 million for 3 tackles as a freshman. So that's a decision you make. I will tell you, if we would go back, and we've brought up Eric Mensah already today, we've talked about him a month ago on guys that we probably should talk more about. If you were doing first 5 off the bus on defense, Eric Mensah is probably one of those 5. Like, the dude looks great.
That's a pretty tough rotation to crack.
That's what I'm saying. It's a tough rotation to crack. I'm going to take Sonny, Arvell, KJ, Mensah, and maybe
Kenyatta Jackson looks like a physical marvel.
He's one of my top 3.
No. I just want to make the point.
He looks totally different. And how much of that is just confidence in knowing that this is finally my team, this is finally my role? Because it's not, he doesn't look that different from just a physical standpoint as he did the last 2 years.
Ooh,
but
I kind of think he does.
I think that there's it's a walking lighter,
Maybe.
This is now your team. And maybe we see a little bit different leadership style. Maybe we see that translate into his productivity. We don't know that for a fact, but he's vocal. He's in people's faces. He's much bigger from an impact, even in practice standpoint. Maybe that's because he just was behind Jack and JT. But if he's ready to take that leap, and not to Chase Young level, not even to last year JT Tuimoloau 12 sacks level, you give him 8.5, 9 sacks this year, And this defensive line is fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. And now you have questions beyond this year. Certainly, recruiting questions are what they are, but the group that's assembled here is pretty good right now, as long as they stay healthy, which is the key, because we know depth is still a little sparse.
I think he's going to have double-digit sacks. I mean, if I'm going to narrow it down.
Is that your first bold P? Are you drilling down?
If I'm going to drill down, it's hard for me to imagine, because I think Kenyatta Jackson is going to play more snaps than any other defensive end for Ohio State. And I think maybe I'm just prone to exaggeration, hyperbole, recency bias. The way that he's attacking, the reps that he's getting against even Austin Sareveld or Ethan Onyanwa, who I think are going to be really good and all Big Ten or potentially all American candidates at tackle, like he looks like he's on another level. And you mentioned just the weight off the shoulder. I think
he's moving lighter.
The last 3 years, it was like, this is a player who you can see becoming an NFL potential first-round draft pick. He's got every tool that you want, and the physicality is going to be there. It was like he's 6'4", 6'5", but it was like a skinny-ish version.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to make too big of a deal.
He got here at 235 pounds, I mean, now
but that's not the case now.
Now he's 270.
He looks like an absolute monster. So I'm pretty bullish on Kenyatta Jackson specifically amongst that group. And if he doesn't have double-digit sacks, I'm going to be surprised.
Well, I mean, I think it's a fair selection. I think it's smart to do the whole group in some, because first 3 days of getting to watch Bo Atkinson out here, I was like, okay, I see it. He's maybe not quite as loose as Kenyatta. He doesn't have the flexibility, doesn't have the ability to maybe get as low around the edge, but he's strong. You can see that. And that sort of complementary style of play, I think, is really important when you're combining Kenyatta Jackson and CJ Hicks and Caden Curry, and then you drop the Caden and Edric in there. It's trending the right direction. So you still need continued evolution of Eric Mensah, of Will Smith, of Jason Moore, of Tywon Malone, of Jerquez Carter. But like now all of a sudden you're like, oh, we got seven. We got 7 defensive tackles.
Yeah, and the only reason I didn't bring up Will Smith is because like that, I was talking about the 3-tech specifically, and it feels like Will Smith is now given Ohio State an option that it feels really good about behind Caden McDonald. So again, that validates what I'm talking about, why the stock is up. Because if you had asked me, 3 weeks ago who that was going to be, I'd say, I have no idea.
I mentioned the linebackers, and I'll just keep going down that route. I don't know how much we'll see of Peyton Pierce throughout the first week of the season. Texas is certainly going to spread things out, but he's athletic enough to be on the field in a 2 linebacker situation. But what you're seeing out of now the first 5 again, when we're talking just the growth of a position group at Ohio State, what James Laurinaitis has done in that linebacker room in 2 years is nothing short of miraculous when it comes to just the athletic profile of that group. We've talked about it a lot in the offseason, but what Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese and Peyton Pierce and TJ Alford and Riley Pettijohn and Garrett Stover, if we go 6 deep, it is really good. And you're going to see those guys being more and more involved as far as the heart of this defense goes. And the thing about these guys is that none of them are out of place. And that's really the beauty of learning from someone like James Laurinaitis, I guess, who probably knew a little bit about football.
Probably.
He has put them in a position where they're succeeding. They're not thinking. They're just reacting. And it is beautiful to watch those guys, the sideline to sideline flow, the way that they're getting upfield in the pass rush situations that they're given, the ability to drop back and cover because of their freakish athleticism. Like, this is a really good group. And I don't want to dive too far into everything that they can do. But boy, like, this is top to bottom, the change in this linebacker room in the last 2 years is insane.
Yeah. I mean, they were in the all Big Ten desert for years. And I was like, when's that silver bullet legacy going to be reestablished? And James Laurinaitis has done that. And Jim Knowles helped.
Yeah.
But even 2 years ago, James Laurinaitis returned, and it wasn't in that full-time role. It was like, well,
but
he's going to be that guy. He is that guy. He wasn't getting the credit for it. And then he got the full responsibility. And you look at the recruiting return and just watch Riley Pettijohn or TJ Alford walk off the field. It's like, okay, well, it seems like there's actually the next Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese already here. And that wasn't the case for a long time. You think about some of the years where the linebacker play was dipping, and I think that Pete Warner did not get enough credit. I'm just thinking about like 5 years ago. It's like, sure, Pete Warner was really good, and he's been really good at and validated at the NFL level. And Tuff Borland was a much better and valuable piece at middle linebacker than he's ever going to get credit for. And if you disagree with that, that's fine. I understand that he, has a low light against him.
He's a 3-year captain at Ohio State, and it just happened to coincide with maybe the worst 3 years of defense in the history of the school.
But whatever you may think about those two specific guys, there was nothing behind it.
No, but it also goes to Tommy Eichenberg. It goes to Steel Chambers. It goes to people assuming those guys weren't good enough. I mean, there was a large swath of the fan base that even in the last 2 years would never believe Cody Simon would be good enough to play at Ohio State. What James Laurinaitis has been able to get out of these guys is really, really different.
Yeah. No, it's going to be fun to watch because they're just a bunch of
animals,
athletic marvels.
They're demons.
They're going to be fun to watch. You're not going to believe this, Birm, but I think that there's...
Are you taking Austin Saravel stock?
No, I have it all already.
Oh.
I don't need to. And we talked about him on Snap Judgments on Tuesday, if you missed it, on 97.1 The Fan's YouTube, or it's NTV's YouTube, or it's NTV Plus, or anywhere that you download podcasts. We talked about him and potentially some snaps at left tackle, so I don't need to do that again. But tight ends, position group as a whole. And I want to talk about the bottom half of that depth chart on the rise, which is what is making this, I think, the best position group, the best tight end group in America that no one is seemingly talking about at all. There's a lot of attention on Max Clair. I think people already have a good understanding of where he fits in nationally and the production that he might provide as a receiving threat. And Will Kazmarek is now 1 year later a known commodity. And I think that having those two is really important. I've made the comparison there with Luke Farrell and Jeremy Ruckert. I think they can be the next version of that. But it's not just those two that make it really good. And Ohio State wants to be able to create different matchups and different scenarios and situations, with whether that's 12 personnel or using 3 tight ends, or last year we even saw 4 tight ends on the field at the same time. That's where Bennett Christian and Jelani Thurman enter the picture. And in those first couple of days of practice that we saw, Will Kazmarek was still a little bit limited as he came back. He had that offseason surgery. Don't think that that's anything that's of long-term concern. He may already be by Wednesday back to full go. Not certain about that. We'll check on it when they get back out there with another injury update from Ryan Day. But Jelani Thurman, everyone has been waiting since the moment he arrived for that light to turn on. And I don't think that it's perfect, but you're seeing less of the bobble. You're seeing more strong catches. You're seeing contested catches. Ironically, that's the part of the game where I think he's had the most room to grow. I think he's been a willing blocker.
Yeah, he's been wanting to be physical.
And the perception when he got here was like, well, he's going to be the kind of weapon that Ohio State's not had at tight end for a really long time. And it was like, and you also, even when you saw the catch at Penn State, it was the triple catch. And I think Ryan Day and Keenan Bailey both sort of alluded to it in a joking fashion that also revealed the truth, that has been the part of his game that they could not trust him to get that football. And now he's proving that at a different level. And Bennett Christian, man, I don't know what the production is going to look like.
How many catches? Let's go over under 9.5 catches for Bennett Christian.
Under. It's going to be under.
It's likely under, but that does not in any way, shape, or form denigrate what his impact is going to be on this team.
No, because if you look at, I actually was just referring back to the reception totals from a year ago for Ohio State for a story I was working on at Letterman Row. And it's like, it's not just hard for tight ends to catch the football, and rack up the stats in this offense. It's hard for anybody. Brandon Ennis finished fourth amongst the wide receivers, and he had 14 catches in 16 games. So, to say that I think Bennett Christian is going to top what Brandon Ennis did a year ago, or that Will Kazmarek is going to top what Brandon Ennis did a year ago, or Jelani Thurman, I think probably not. If they all had 8 catches, they might, 24 receptions for those 3 for 3 touchdowns. You'd be like, well, that's pretty good, as long as they continue to block at the level that you're required to play at Ohio State. I don't want to, again, I've learned my lesson over the years. You're not going to go too far down the road of talking about tight end receptions. And you have to remember to put that in the context of the other weapons that are on this team. So I'm not going stock up on...
Yeah, you're not likely to have 2,000-yard rushers this year.
No.
So there's going to be more openings there.
Maybe, but I think...
We talked about it on Saturday, though. The Ohio State offense, in the 3 days of practice that we got to watch out here, it seemed like they were force-feeding the tight ends on purpose. Yeah. And more often than not, you'd look up and Jelani Thurman was catching a pass.
Or Bennett Christian.
And doing it in a way that looked a whole lot more comfortable than he did the last 2 years. And so that's the growth. Is he tight end number 4 on this team? I don't know. Is he tight end number 3? I don't know. Does it matter? I don't know. We know that all of those guys are going to play. Ohio State is not going to be able to use Max Clair, I don't think, in a traditional tight end way. And so who's number 2 and who's number 3 may actually be, sliding down a little bit because Max is going to be more of a slot outside guy. So you have weapons. Keenan Bailey's never going to get credit for it because, as you said, these guys are not going to catch a ton of balls except for Max Clair this year, who will probably finish second on the team in receptions, Bull P.
I think that's too far. And
if you just look, and that's not even including Nate Roberts or Brody Lennon or Max LeBlanc, like this is as deep and talented a tight end room as anybody in the country has, and Keenan Bailey deserves a lot of credit for it. But it also falls on Bennett Christian and Jelani Thurman. Those guys deserve credit for letting, Will Kazmarek came in last year. Max Clair came in this year. There's no pushback. There's no fight about it. It's like, hey, we're just going to keep getting better. And, I think of Jelani in a lot of ways similarly to how we've discussed Kenyatta Jackson over the last few years. Like, there's been, from the minute he arrived at Ohio State, a fairly loud underpining or whatever of people saying, well, when's he going to transfer? When's he going to transfer? And he's like, hey, I like being here. So why leave? And just keep getting better. And he's done that. And now you hope to see that be rewarded.
Yeah. Do you have another stock?
We talked on Saturday about the corners. I'm going to stay positional here. I really think that the top 4 corners in this team are going to be as good as anybody in the country. And we're not going to talk a whole bunch about them because we're not going to see a bunch of stuff from them this month. But what you're getting out of Jermaine Matthews and Aaron Scott and Davis Nigmanosin and then Devin Sanchez is really going to be – the defensive line is going to be as good as the coverage is. And so, I know that there's some people who believe the other way as well, that the coverage is as good as the defensive line.
I believe coverage and rush work together.
I believe that they do. And this pass rush is going to need a little bit of help at the start of the season, I think, to get themselves going and see who really is stepping up. We have an idea of who's stepping up, but those corners are going to make it a lot easier. And so I think that they deserve another shout out for just being like, hey, this is an elite group. Maybe there's only 4 of them.
Yeah.
That's scary because you'd like to have more. But the group that they have is pretty special.
Yeah. I mean, stock up as well on the defensive creativity because we have to continue the streak of 20 different stock watches in a row, including Matt Patricia. I don't know how many snaps Caleb Downs is going to play in this big nickel role or if it's even necessary. It could be. We'll find out. But
we'll stock up on the idea.
The willingness to, because I mentioned Caden Curry with the defensive line and moving him around in different situations. Arvell Reese and CJ Hicks, we've talked about that plenty as well. The fact that you have the buy-in and the willingness to take somebody that is hands down the best defensive player in America and be like, you know what? Let's try this over here, bud. Let's see. Maybe it's a one-day thing, a one-game thing, something that you see 10 times over the course of the year. I really don't know.
Yeah.
Every time we've had this conversation, what's a Matt Patricia defense looks like? Well, looks like. Yeah.
Lex Luthor.
Ask me tomorrow.
Yeah.
Ask me next week. It's going to be different. And I think that's interesting and it's going to keep you engaged. And it may be something that if Caleb Downs didn't want to do it, and if he didn't want the challenge, he has earned the right to say no.
Matt Patricia walked off the field on Tuesday after practice and said, well, I got to go watch tape of 4,000 reps. I'm like, what? And he's like, we have so many players and we're splitting up so many things. He's like, it's like 3 practices in one so he's just loving it. And he said that he's been able to deploy some different things in the spring game defense, the one alignment they used without any tricks, without anything. He's like, this has been really fun and he's really enjoying himself. And I don't, we'll talk about Caden Curry or CJ Hicks or Caleb Downs moving to the big nickel, but like there is no shortage of things that he's going to be able to do with a defense that is so versatile. And that's why, to go back to your earlier point, like it doesn't matter if Caden Curry's inside because Edric Houston's hurt or because they just want to see what he can do there. Like you have the flexibility to do all of it. And for a coach, and we saw this out of Chip Kelly a year ago, but you can just see like the rejuvenation in these coaches' eyes when they get to hear from the NFL. They're like, holy crap, I have 80 NFL type players instead of 50 or 25 like you have in defense in the NFL.
Yeah, and he gets another chance to go coach them on Wednesday morning at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. We will be back to talk to James Laurinaitis and the linebackers. I hope Birm can contain himself around these guys.
They're so good. It's such a great group.
But no guarantees. We'll have snap judgments afterwards. As always, thanks for joining us on The Beat. It is a Wednesday Stonk Watch. We appreciate you joining us. He's Birm. I'm Austin. See you later.